Hello everyone, welcome back to Game Escape. In this video we're going to be talking about the Smith and the Devil, an old folklore told in various forms throughout history. I can't read it verbatim here, but I can tell the history and a little bit of the story. So I just invite you to sit back, relax, and I'm just going to talk about this for a little while we watch some gameplay. So this story, The Smith and the Devil, has been translated over 35 different languages. The official story is European, and it dates back to the Bronze Age, about 6,500 years ago. It was first published by a Giambattista Brazil, and he collected the story around 1634. The Brothers Grimm included it in their children's and household tales published in 1812 and 1815. There's also a Russian version of the tale, and that was included in the Tales and Legends from the Land of the Tsar. So the original story is thought to be told around the Proto-Indo-European language time, and again that's around 65 years ago. So researchers actually believe that the Smith and the Devil is the oldest fairy tale that we know of for now. So enough of the history though, let's actually get into the story itself. So let's get into the stories themselves. So at this point I've read a couple versions. So we'll start with the Brothers Grimm fairy tale first. And it basically goes like this. There's this blacksmith who ran out of money via squandering it all. So drink, lavish things, however you want to put it. But he ran out and his life became very depressing. He actually decided that he was going to end his life. So he went out into the woods and he hung a noose from a tree in the forest. And he almost did it, but he was stopped. An old man came to him before the smith actually committed the act. The old man performed a feat of turning himself into a tree and then making himself as small as a mouse to prove that he has these superpowers. The old man declared to be the devil and give the smith riches. He in exchange wanted the smith to sign a 10-year contract. The devil would come collect him after 10 years and one check in with the smith once during those years. So at some point the devil is just going to come visit him one time in this 10-year period. The smith agreed, signing his name in a book. As promised, the devil showed up once in the 10 years. Now what the smith agreed to was the devil promised him riches. He would go home that night and there would be chests and coffers and boxes, and no matter what he did, the money wouldn't run out. He would never have to worry about squandering money again. Alright, so the devil makes this visit, and he gives the smith a magical brown sack. Why? Not totally sure. But whoever jumps into the sack could not jump out until the blacksmith let him out. The blacksmith lived a good life, sharing the riches with his friends and having fun with the magical ability of the brown sack. So one day, the devil came back to collect the smith. Smith grabbed his brown sack, his belongings, and went with the devil per the contract. They returned to the spot in the forest where the smith signed the contract. Now the smith asked, "Could you show me again? Can you demonstrate that you are the devil? Can you turn back into that big tree and go as small as a mouse? I just want to make sure that I am going with the right person. So the devil turned himself into a tree, and then he into a mouse, into a mouse. And the blacksmith scooped up the devil, putting him in the sack where he couldn't escape. The blacksmith then beat the devil until he tore out the contract page the blacksmith signed. The devil was beat and returned to hell without the blacksmith. So, nullify the contract. Blacksmith went back home. Devil went back to his lair. The blacksmith lived his life and died. The smith walked to the pearly gates of heaven, but St. Peter would not let him in because he made a deal with the devil. The blacksmith went to the gates of hell, but the devil didn't want the trickster in his realm. The blacksmith became angry. He knocked on the door, and when little demons came out, he nailed their ears and noses to the gates of hell. The devil went to St. Peter complaining about the smith, basically saying, "You gotta get rid of this guy. He won't leave me alone, and he keeps harassing us." And St. Peter realized to get rid of the devil, they would have to let the smith into heaven. The second story actually starts with not sure how the smith signed the contract. It just starts out with the smith accepting a 7-year contract from the devil. The devil made the smith the greatest smith in the land. The smith put a sign over his door, self-declaring himself the master of all masters. So St. Peter again, and the Lord were walking about and saw the sign over the door. And the Lord asked the smith who he was, and the smith answered arrogantly, "Read the sign." A man came by needing his horseshoe. The Lord asked the smith if he could be the one to shoe the horse. The smith agreed. The Lord didn't remove the shoe, but instead removed the legs from the horse, throwing them into the fire and reattaching the legs to the horse afterwards. This obviously impressed the master of masters, the smith. Later, the smith's mother stopped by, an older woman, and the Lord threw the woman into the furnace and forged her into her younger self. The smith saw this and replied, "I might be the master, but the master always has something else that he can learn." So later on, another man came by needing his horseshoe. The smith eagerly took off the horse's legs, throwing them into the fire, like the Lord did, but the legs just burned up. The blacksmith had to pay for the horse. Later, an old woman came by and mocked the blacksmith, knowing that he did this with the horse. He taunted the woman, and then he threw the old woman into the fire. The woman screamed, begged, and pleaded, and the smith replied, "You're so old, you don't know what is good for you." He swore though he would turn her into her younger self and not even charge a penny. And the old woman burnt to ashes. The smith reflected on his deal with the devil and realized that the devil gave him less power than he actually thought. The Lord came and visited the smith, and he gave him 3 wishes. One of those wishes, that whoever crawls into his steel purse wouldn't be able to get out unless the smith allowed. The other 2 were interesting in the story, but for the sake of time, I'll just cover this one because it seems the most important. So one day the devil came for the smith per the contract, and the smith asked the devil to become as small as he can. He had a concern his steel purse was not sound and would lose his traveling money when they left. The devil, for some odd reason, agreed, turning small enough to creep into the purse. The smith then closed the purse, placing it into the furnace. The devil screamed to be released. The smith then put it on the anvil to weld the purse together. He struck it with his sledgehammer, and the devil cried to be released. The devil agreed never to return for the smith. The smith agreed to this and released the devil. The smith would later grab his sledgehammer, making the trip to heaven or to hell. story doesn't make it clear that the Smith died at all. It actually just states he wanted to see. He wanted to see if heaven or hell would take him. So he grabbed his hammer, making the trip to heaven or hell. At the crossroads to the kingdoms, he decided to try hell first, seeing how he already knew the devil. The devil refused to let the smith in. The smith went to heaven, and as he walked towards the gate, he saw a tailor being let in. The smith threw his hammer, which landed in the gap of the door, keeping it open. The story does not say if the smith entered heaven or not. And the last story that I found, this one's slightly different. And you'll see what I mean by that. So there's a father who goes to church and he sees this elaborate picture of the devil at the church. And he calls for a painter and he wants the devil painted on the forge doors. So the father paints the devil on the door of the forge, and the father complimented the devil, greeted the devil in passing, and called him handsome. The father fell on good terms with the devil. He would walk by him and say, "Hello, my fellow countrymen." This blacksmith, this father, actually prospered. He did well in the forge, and he had a son. And when the father died, the son took over the forge. The son had no respect for the devil, and nothing he did prospered. The son soon resorted to hitting the devil in the head with a hammer and spitting on him. For years, the son did this to the devil. He walked by the painting, he would strike the devil in the head 3 times with his hammer, and then he would spit on him. One day, the devil had enough. The devil turned himself into a lad, requesting to be apprenticed by the son. The son agreed to take the devil in, not knowing the lad as the devil. The devil did all the work better than the son. Everything the son couldn't do, the devil did. The son grew to love his apprentice. One day, the son left the forge, leaving the devil with idle hands. The devil called out to an older woman he saw walking by. The devil promised to turn the woman young. For 500 rubles, the devil would turn the old woman young. He had her men fetch pails of milk. The devil burned the woman in a forge until bones were left. He put the bones in pails of milk, and in 3 minutes a young, beautiful woman rose from the milk. Now, the woman went home and told her husband and said, "You have to come to this forge. You have to be turned young." So the young lad disappeared, and the son returned to the forge, and he tried to transform the old man into a young man. It, of course, failed. The old man burnt to ashes. The young woman had the son seized to be killed, hung by the gallows for killing her husband. The devil revealed himself. He made a deal with the smith. "Never hammer on, spin on, or mistreat me again, and honor me." In exchange, the devil would bring the old man back to life as a young man, and the son agreed. The story ends saying that the old man and the old woman, now turned young, lived a long, happy life. And the smith ended up never hammering or spitting on the devil and gave the devil his due and his honor. I know these stories are abbreviated, but I wanted to fit them in and just give you an idea of how this story transformed, what it turned into, and how different people told it. So I really hope that you had fun with these stories, and I want to thank you for joining me. I hope this gave you a break from the world for a little bit, and until next time.